Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this reflective learning session called Only Together. Before we go into the agenda, we will do some introductions. My name is Heidi Mykland. I'm currently a global contractor safety advisor in Shell. I've been in Shell for about 15 years in different roles within HSE. And currently, I'm building skills in the organization in terms of contractor safety, but also developing and shaping global guidance material and recommended practices. I'm also representing Shell in the IOGP 423 subcommittee, which is the HSE management in a contracting environment. Over to my colleague, Dave.
Thanks, Heidi. My name is Dave Bourbon. I'm a Shell employee as well. I've been with Shell, as you can see, for a while. All of my experiences in the various downstream businesses. I've been in a variety of roles, operations, engineering, maintenance, and the common thread of those roles has always been HSE. And currently, I work as the frontline work execution principal specialist in support of Shell's safety refresh, which is simply about eradicating fatalities and life-changing incidents. You see me there in my picture on the beach of Aruba. I am not there today, although I would like to be. But I am really excited about today's session. Heidi, almost jumping out of my skin. So over to you to talk about expected outcomes and agenda.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. So the expected outcome from our session together today is that people make mistakes, and only together we can prevent harm. People tend to normalize risk, and only together we can avoid incidents. And also people struggle with dilemmas, and only together we can solve them. So this is about learning how clients and contractor can best work together. This is our agenda for today. Dave will get us started with some learner mindset before we go into the videos and the discussions afterwards. And then at the end, we have some key learnings, and then summary and closeout. We will be doing all the videos and the discussions in plenary. The best outcome is when you have smaller groups, where you have break into smaller groups. But today we will do it in plenary due to the time that we have available. Okay, Dave, over to you.
Thanks, Heidi. So what I'd like to do is just spend a moment talking about what we call learner mindset, or some of you may know it as growth mindset, huh? All of us on this call are leaders, and all of us are committed to a strong safety performance, a strong safety culture, and really strengthening that culture of care. When we show our employees we care, they are safer. We know that, huh? Together, and only together, can we make our companies and our industry a safer place to work. In terms of physical safety, just as some reminders, if you've got a headset on like me, just make sure you can hear any kind of a smoke detector, fire alarm go off. Make sure you are in a comfortable spot. And believe it or not, once or twice I've done these virtual calls during the COVID, and someone's taken the call while driving. Please, if you're driving, pull over and then rejoin the call. Learner mindset. Listen today with attention to learn. Be curious. I find it helpful to ask open-ended questions, really to stimulate the conversation. Inquire to learn and really deepen your learning and really help all of us learn together. And as part of what we call psychological safety, please feel free to speak up, challenge what you don't agree with, offer your view. This is a safe place to speak up and let us know what you think. We want to hear your views. We want to hear from you, and we'll all benefit from that. And next slide, we'll talk a little bit, just again, probably just a reminder around virtual meetings, please stay on mute. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat box. You can raise your hand if you want to offer your input, your view, ask questions, and please do that. This is intended to be a really, really engaging session. And what I notice is my connectivity in the home office is better when I close all the other applications and focus just on today's session for the next 65 minutes. Heidi, I think we're ready to get started, so over to you.
Okay, thank you there. So, reflective learning is a method that focuses on behavioral change, aimed at personal reflection and also individual change. Now, compared to the more traditional ways of learning, in the way we read safety bulletins, safety alerts, etc., that mainly focuses on reading and listening, the reflective learning caters for additional learning styles, such as watching and discussing. Now, it's not all about watching a video. The audience have to make sense of the information and also reflect on how it relates to their own work. There are about 9 reflective learning videos available from the Hearts and Minds website through Energy Institute, and the session we have today is called Only Together. It's about collaboration between the client and contractor staff, those involved in contractor HSE, both pre-award and post-award. Only together as contract management teams, as contractors and subcontractors, can we achieve best HSE performance, and respecting our responsibilities and taking care of our own is key to success. Only together we can get the best HSE performance outcome and also much more, because good safety is also good business. Before I put on video number 1, I just want to give you a heads up. The video will be switching back and forth between 2 different scenarios. That might seem a bit confusing, which is why I'm telling you now. There are basically 2 scenarios or 2 contract work scopes, and one is building a solar park in South America, and the other one is repairing a heat exchanger in a refinery in Asia. Let me share my other screen. And then I will put on the video, and then we'll have some good discussions.
We got the call at 9 AM on a Tuesday morning. The job I'd been bidding for was ours. It was our first for a multinational energy company, and it could mean a lot of work for us in the future. We had to install large solar panels in a major new solar park here in Brazil. The client, Lauren, was under pressure to get the work going before their year end. So I set off for their offices.
It was a straightforward job, repairing a leaking pipe on a heat exchanger at one of our refineries in Malaysia. I called Jack, a contractor who'd done this kind of job for us before. He was in the neighborhood, so he dropped in to talk about the work. We hardly needed a meeting, but it was nice to catch up.
Lauren and her team were tough on costs, but negotiating the contract details went pretty smoothly. We agreed that to save costs and time, we would use the crane that was already on site and being used by another contractor. So we included that in the HSE plan and prepared to get the job started.
Jack and I went through the details and agreed that his lead in Malaysia, Rashid, would get the job done efficiently and safely. We assumed that the info from a previous job could be used, an existing work plan and the standard risk assessment. It was a couple of pages long and would be adequate for this job. Everyone knew what to do as they'd done this job before. So we raised a purchase order and turned our attention to getting the work done.
I called Gabriel, our site manager, to talk through the job and about how we could use the existing crane to move the solar panels into place. I said that a lift plan will be part of the contract HSE plan, so let's get going and make this one happy client. But when Gabriel and his team got to the site, they had some doubts about whether the crane was suitable for the job and whether or not they should consult a specialist. But it was there, successfully working on site, and time was tight. So they decided that the best course of action was to push on. And that's when things went wrong. We were trying hard to please a new client, and suddenly, one of my team was being rushed to hospital.
Rashid's team arrived and started to isolate the heat exchanger. They set a plug and prepared to insert a spade into the pipeline. But the risk assessment and permit to work were missing some vital controls. So Rashid's team and operations had an incomplete understanding of what was needed. And an incorrect plug was used. A small pressure buildup meant that residual hydrocarbons started to leak from the pipe. Rashid's alarm alerted him to the danger. But it was too late.
Okay, so you saw the video. I would like to ask you, what part did the contract managers play in this incident? And by that, we mean the contract managers in the offices that you saw. Anyone that wants to go first?
And guys, this is intended to be very engaging, so don't hesitate to come off mute or write your comments in the chat box. And Glenn, the first one is always the tough one, so over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is probably the only one I can answer well, because I've been in this position as well. You know, you bid for a work job, you know, the focus is getting the work in. There's no point spending too long on the technical side when you bid for it. You know, your focus is on just getting the job in and looking good from a sales point of view, and you don't spend enough time up front clarifying exactly what needs to be done and how it will work and what it's done. You just focused on the sales. And then when it actually comes to it, you just sort of think, I can hand that over, it's someone else's problem. And, you know, questions should have been asked at the very beginning regarding exactly what was required, how it would work. So I would say definitely there was responsibility in the office to you know, get everything laid out right. So it's that's obviously the first part of the chain of events that led. So they should have played a key role in terms of the technical side, but I don't think they did. They were just focused on actually, you know, bringing the sale in, and there was no obviously responsibility then in terms of who was actually going to make sure whether it was doable under the scope of work.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And then let me just lead on with another question. Which steps of the planning phase did they misjudge or overlook? Anyone that wants to give it a go?
In Heidi, I know Roger made a comment in the chat box. So maybe Roger, if you would come off mute. Roger talked about or mentioned they made assumptions. So, you know, we're curious, how did those assumptions contribute to the incident? And maybe Heidi, that will help answer the question that you just asked.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Yes, they I think Heidi, you said they made assumptions, and I think those assumptions were that previous risk assessments would be adequate for the job, and they didn't go into the sufficient detail in understanding the equipment and how it related to the revised task. It was different from last time, but they hadn't really understood it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And does anyone want to suggest anything they could have done in the planning phase that to avoid assumptions.
I think again from Glenn, from my point of view, is you should list questions. Don't be afraid to actually ask questions before you issue a proposal. And there's normally time for TQs and things like that should have been asked and clarified at the very start. So so I think that was the obvious time to go for it. Because it might be that actually when you unveil the scope of work, it might be outside of your capabilities because of the requirements that you'd not really fully anticipated.
Mm. Yeah.
Heidi, I'm curious for others on the call, this asking questions and feeling safe to ask questions. What's the real world say about that in your experience? For those who haven't spoken yet, maybe someone would come off mute. Do you feel safe to ask the questions during the planning process of the client? Are you creating the environment for our contractor partners to ask the tough questions? Be curious to hear from others around how safe it is to ask questions. Hussein, I see you on the call and I see you on mute. Maybe you come off mute and just share some of your experiences if you didn't mind. Heidi, we have a very quiet group today.
Yes, we do. Maybe it's been a long day. I just want to add, and I think you mentioned it, Glenn. I think a lot of incidents starts in the office, poor planning, not involving the right specialists, which is key really. And I think this is exactly what happened here. But I am still curious to what kind of steps they could have taken in the planning phase to avoid this.
I think it's about fully understanding the scope of work and conducting the detailed risk assessment on the various stages and steps of the process. And it's got to be done holistically. It's a bit of a buzzword, I know, but there's so many different interested parties in all these activities. The crane owner operator, the people who are actually there on site, and the people scoping the work. And they all need to get their heads together to understand each other's roles and jobs, not just work in isolation. And that often is when these problems start to occur, when people are working in silos.
Yeah, I really like what I hear. I think starting off with really clear scope of work. What are the risks? Who's going to be responsible to manage which risk? And that way build it into the contract so that we set up the work for success. Anyone else wants to say anything before we move on to the part 2?
I can. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, my name is Hussein also.
Hi, Hussein.
I do agree with what Roger said. At the beginning stages, putting things on documented between the contractor and the client, and I agree on the risk assessments to be done, agree on the safety rules to be followed, putting the safety first to all contractors at the beginning before starting the job. This will help avoiding incidents, of course.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think if we sum it up, don't underestimate the planning and the pre-award phase of contracting. It is key to a successful execution.
Heidi, if I could, Hussein, a personal question, if you don't mind. I see on the participants list, Annan 122, Do you mind if I ask what does that stand for?
No, it does not stand to anything actually.
Oh,
I need to change it to my name. I don't know how it has came like this, but I will change it to.
oh. I was just curious. I thought maybe there was you had an alter ego or something. So I was just interested. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say, Hussein?
No, it's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I will go into video number 2, and then we have some more questions and hopefully some fruitful conversation after this one.
Okay. We can all make mistakes, especially when we're under time pressure. We thought that using the available crane would be okay, but we should have consulted a specialist. And I hadn't had time to visit the site, so I didn't know about their concerns.
When nothing bad happens, you get used to nothing bad happening. And the fact that it never does becomes normal. We'd both planned and done this job before, so we thought we understood it well. We just assumed that all the usual safety barriers were in place. We use experienced professionals with good track records, people who know what they're doing. Even so, you should never assume anything.
I was entirely focused on impressing our new client. Our first job for them had to go well. Gabriel knew we were under time pressure. It presented him with a dilemma. Stopping the work would add cost and delay the project, making us look bad in front of our new client. That's how one of our workers found himself in hospital. And we missed the deadline anyway.
Both Jack and I assumed that Rashid's team and the local operations team would have checked and updated the existing risk assessment and permit to work to cover all the risks. We should have ensured that Rashid understood that residual hydrocarbons could still be present and been specific about exactly what the job needed.
The correct way of working was specified in the lift plan. You'd think that would be enough. But all the words in the world can't protect you if they're not put into practice. The contract HSE plan and the related documents are important, but they must reflect reality. You write it, agree it, print out copies, and expect it to do the job for you. But it doesn't work that way. A contract HSE plan needs to be made real and become a dynamic, living document that defines who does what for both client and contractor. And it's crucial to go and see that it is working on site, because you only know controls are in place when you verify them.
A purchase order isn't enough. An existing risk assessment could be a good starting point, but it's got to be adapted and developed so it matches the exact scope and the risks of the new job, not the last one. Each plan is unique. It must be properly thought through to set your workers up for success. Some of them may be completely new to the types of jobs you're asking them to do. Remember, words alone don't keep people safe, but they can build bridges to a deeper understanding of what's required to keep everyone safe on site. The HSE plan must be a living and scalable document that starts at the beginning of tender, evolves as the job's awarded, and then gets implemented on site.
Identifying high-risk activities is essential. It helps to prepare for the job's specific risk assessment that can be explained during the kick-off and toolbox meetings. High-risk activities should be known to all involved.
They should be the words that bring us all together, because only together can we keep people safe.
All righty. Guys, before we get started with part 2, just a quick reminder about this reflective learning session is what Heidi and I are working to do is show you how you could run a session like this in your company with your work groups. This kind of a session is really, really beneficial when we have really good engagement and conversation. So please don't hesitate as we go through these 3 questions to come off mute and share your experiences and share your view. So first question, what's your experience? How do we make sure that the HSE risks are adequately addressed prior to the award of a contract? So that's folks to come off mute and just share your views, your questions, your experiences. Who would like to start?
May I start again?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry. So making the risk as part of the permit to work, I mean, prior to start the work, to ensure that risk assessment being done prior of issuing the permit to work. So this will make sure that to address the risk pre-award to the work.
Hussein, it sounds like you're linking the response to this question to existing processes to really make sure everything kind of ties together. I just want to check, am I hearing that correctly? Maybe you could talk just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's what we implement at our premises or our company, that a risk assessment or HSE risk being addressed and checked and attached to the permit to work prior of approving or issuing any permit.
Good. Well done. Thank you. Others, what are your experiences with making sure the risks are addressed prior to the award?
Maybe follow up. Who do you think should be involved in the HSE risk assessment in pre-award? What type of people would be, or roles, disciplines?
I think from my point of view, Glenn, here, it's people who know they've done the job before, have been on site, and have experience. So you need to speak to people. I always find that often even the people that maybe aren't that senior in the company, but have actually been in the field or worked on a similar project can offer a huge amount to it. So it's speaking to the right people that you've got in your organization, and again, they might not necessarily be senior, but they might have knowledge of that site, they might have knowledge of the area, or they might have knowledge of the work from past projects, and it's to bring that in and make sure you always learn and you never stop learning, because as the video says, you just, as life goes on and years go by, you just assume all the time because you're getting away with it, and that's very, very dangerous. So yeah, it's that bringing in that experience, and don't be afraid to ask as well. You don't look bad for admitting that you maybe don't have the answer yourself. It's not a weakness to want more knowledge.
Yeah.
And Glenn, I love that idea of getting the experience into the process. In your view, how far down into the organization, how close to the front line do you get in order to bring in that real life experience in putting together the risk assessment? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. From our point of view, when we're on site, I always make an effort to have a debrief with our graduate. We have a lot of graduate engineers, or maybe I've been to site a couple of times. I always make an effort to talk to them about what happened, their experience, what they thought. Because they might see the world from a different view than you. So I always make sure that every time we've been on site, even if it's just a 2 minutes team chat, how'd it go? Any problems? What happened? Anything you're unsure about? Anything you found worrying, and you try and learn. So it's that you can't beat field experience. And we're a consultant. 80% of our work is desk-based consultancy, and 20% field. And it's always the field work that you struggle to understand and manage properly, because they're not necessarily talking to you on a day-to-day basis. So it's making that effort that we do. And I always find that it's that fresh outlook that people have, that even might have just been through health and safety training. They might have passports and work permits the first time, so they might have see things a different way, and maybe current practice isn't best practice.
Yeah. Glenn, thanks for that. I imagine many of you are involved with the principles of human performance, Todd Conklin's 5 principles of human performance. Shell's taken that and expanded that. And what I heard Glenn talking about was people are the masters of their work and solution to problems, huh? So driving that down into the organization, I think helps us all be smarter. Follow-up question for the group. How do we make sure this HSSC plan that we've put together is fit for purpose for the job that we plan to do on site? Others who maybe haven't spoken, would you want to come off mute and just talk about how do you make sure this HSE plan is something that you can actually use when you get to site? Osama, I see you on the call. Would you want to come off mute and just and share your experiences? Heidi, I'm doing very badly at getting people to talk, making me sad.
Follow up, what do you think the key content of an HSE plan should be for contractors to perform a safe job at site?
Good afternoon. I'm sorry for being mute. My microphone was not connected. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the idea of having this brainstorming session. I think it's a very, very nice one. This is Osama Marzouk from the University of Bremen. Sorry again for being silent. I was kind of just listening. That HSE, because here I'm talking from my university, so maybe safety for me. When it comes to safety for me, I don't look at it from an industrial perspective, but for a student perspective, because we have a workshop here, part for teaching students in engineering. And this workshop, we have some dangerous machines, like saw machine, like cutting machines. This can be kind of dangerous, and you need to maintain high level of safety, because a mistake here is not tolerable. So we have a person, should have a person who is in charge for that, and safety signage visible in different ways, and safety plans which can be revised regularly. Also, that one time a group of our students went for training in Bahrain, actually in an institution for training in Bahrain. We are in Oman, Sultanate Oman, but these students went to Bahrain, a special program. One of the things I kind of noticed there is that high attention being paid to safety also there, because they do training in mechanical perspective and or electrical component. So in both cases there is a chance of risk and accident. So they also that monitor someone always there, someone to be there. Never leave the person who is not qualified to deal with the machine alone. Also, always have someone with him during that training. So this, when it comes to safety, this comes to me that training and teaching more. Also, another time, one of a group of the students I was with them went to one of the companies here in Oman. I think it's a governmental company. It's Orbic, which is a refinery company in Sohar. And actually, on that day, we were not allowed to enter because we were not fully observing the safety equipment. I mean, the safety boots, and even like partly complying with the safety is not enough. And even despite being a representative from the university, being planned, like pre-planned visit, it's not like a haphazard visit, it was pre-planned. And despite some trying to make exception, but it was not allowed. So there's a way to listen for me and for my students, that to have kind of a zero tolerance when it comes to safety. And this is safety is important. I mean, safety, one thing that may be overlooked, because if you are an optimistic person, you may assume that no accident will happen, so you really relax it. But if a mistake happens, the cost can be horrible. So it's important to observe high levels of safety standards always.
Osama, lots of good stuff there. So thank you so much. Just maybe one quick question, as you reflect on your students, if they see something that's unsafe, if they see something they don't understand, or they see something they just don't agree with, will they speak up? Do they feel safe to challenge or to ask questions if that happens?
It depends on the student. I mean, if you have a student who is not very mature, still like young man, or not feeling that high level of responsibility, it might not be received in a good way, positively. For example, the student may feel angry, may feel, or you are making things complicated, or it's not a problem, or I am responsible for that. It's my life. If something happens bad, it is my life. Something you may feel this. You may have to deal with this level of or lack of feeling of responsibility. Sometimes, yes, it happens.
Good. No, thank you so much for that, Heidi. I think as people have talked, we've heard a little bit about that. How do you stay in touch with the work once you're out in the field? I guess I would just open it up to see if anyone else would want to come off mute and just share your experiences beyond what's been said so far about how do you stay in touch with the work, you're in the field, and how do you make sure things continue to work safely as put together in the plan. Anyone else want to come off mute and share?
For me, I think, I mean, when involving an experienced person to the site or to the work of that plan will help in ensuring that it fits the purpose. Or let's say a competent person related to that work or site work will make sure that the HSE plan is being reviewed and fit for the purpose.
Yeah. So thanks for that. So Hussein, if you don't mind, maybe one more question of you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Heidi for part 3. Hussein, in your experience, who is the safer employee? Who is the safer supervisor? Someone with lots of experience or somebody with not much experience at all? What's your view on that, Hussein?
Well, both may be not safer, actually. Sometimes an experienced person, overconfident, having a knowledge that he's doing right, but based on his experience, but it may not be. Of course, the most experienced person will be more safer than a junior one who doesn't know maybe the risks on that side.
Good. Thank you. Hussein, that's a tough question for me to ask. So thank you for your help there. Heidi, I think that's probably it just in terms of time for part 2. Unless anyone else has something, I'm going to turn it back to you for us on part 3.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to quickly mention that in pre-award, to make sure the HSE risks are addressed, I think it's key to remember that the contract managers are not alone. They should be having a team around them, a contract management team, contract procurement specialist, and also HSE to call upon. So leverage the competence within the internal team to ensure all risks are identified. Okay, over to the last video. Questions?
The hardest thing was dealing with the human consequences. Contractors are part of the team. We all rely on them. We should all work as one close team.
Contracts are necessary, and we have to make sure they're tailored to manage the operational risks. We can't expect people on the front line to read contracts. They rely on strong plans and barriers to keep them safe. And you need to visit the site and ensure that the words get put into action. After the incident, I met with Lauren. She mentioned that she'd been very focused on timeframes. I said I was too eager to please because I wanted more business. Now, we get all the necessary people involved in developing a contract HSE plan, from tender to award to the job itself, and we don't rush it.
Whether it's a job safety analysis or detailed contract HSE plan, the contents are essential on all jobs of all sizes. No matter how big or small, difficult or routine the job is, you have to manage the risk and make sure you put an agreed contract HSE plan in place, or an equivalent document, and that it reflects reality. 2 pages or 20, it doesn't matter. It has got to be fit for purpose, cover the scope of work, and agreed by both parties.
There shouldn't be a gap between our desks and the workers on site. The contract HSE plan is a bridge that joins us. Nothing is assumed. Everything is defined.
Don't leave it to words on paper, and listening to contractors is vital. So, sites must be visited, both before work starts and during the job, to verify it can and is being done according to plan.
We all say we want 0 incidents, but it's easy to say. It is achieved through action, at your desk and on site.
Now I'm happy to take the time to get a risk assessment right. If we're not sure, then work is stopped, and we review and rewrite.
I never assume, never expect, but always check and listen to people on the ground. Is the contract HSE plan fit for purpose? Is it being put into practice? Can it be improved? Has something changed? Do we need to update it?
Break down the walls of your office, your conference room, your building, and turn your words into actions.
Only together can contractors and clients deliver work safely, so everyone goes home unharmed every single day.
Only together can we, you and I, protect people from harm and save lives.
Okay, happy tune there and lots of smiling faces. So I would like to ask you then, how do you verify that the HSE plan is being delivered on site? What is the client's role in making sure it's being delivered, or the contractors?
By being at site, and talking to the contractors.
Yeah, that's important.
I think when you have a HSE plan and you both parties agree on it, you may have some deliverables or some targets. And once you check these targets are achieved, this means that the plan is successful.
Yeah,
quantitative metrics, just timeline, the components. You can check these, even itemized list, the numbers, the brands. All this can help to check that the plan was delivered.
Absolutely, yeah. So I would also like to.
I'm sorry, Heidi. I think I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name right. Chucks came off mute. Was ready to speak, I think.
Maybe a poor connection.
Yeah, not a good connection there, I'm afraid.
No. Okay. So often we see that high HSE risk work is subcontracted. So how do we ensure that our subcontractors are set up for success when we go into execution? Anyone that has experience with subcontractor management or wants to share?
I think reporting, like regular reporting that come from the subcontractor all the way to the client directly without going to the contractor. This can establish some transparency and allow better follow up and communication. So you can both communicate with the contractor and also the subcontractor.
Yeah. And what about capability assessments? Do you have any experience in doing capability assessments of our contractors to make sure that they manage their subcontractors? What is your experience with that?
No, I personally don't have experience with that.
No.
Yeah, it's Roger here. Just to say that I come from the days when, if it was a very high risk activity, we wouldn't give it to the contractors. If we were doing a first break-in, they're always done by the people on site who done it before, who knew the risk, who understood them. And once it was the isolation and break-in was done, it was then handed over to the contractor. But of course, these days that's not practical. There's more and more work being done by contractors and subcontractors, and the assessment and testing of the individual people has to be conducted for people carrying out those high risk activities. So just my thoughts and comments. Hope that's useful.
Yeah. No, I thank you for that, Roger. I think you're spot on, and also Osama mentioned it. I think often contractors bring people and maybe equipment to the client site. So making sure the people are capable and competent and the equipment safe to use is for sure something that can be done up front. Anyone else that have experience with subcontractor management, particular with high risk activities?
Yes, we have some experience with subcontractor, and it's from the question, it's understood that it's difficult to manage subcontractors.
Yeah.
Usually, especially for big shutdowns or big jobs. So we don't, for some jobs, we don't allow subcontracting, and whenever there is a need for subcontractor, we allow them unless after doing the safety induction and making sure that the main contractor is having a plan, HSE plan for the subcontractor as well.
Mm. Yeah, you are touching upon a dilemma where you have a site maybe with multiple contractors, bigger contracts. Do you do anything in terms of reducing the number of layers of subcontractors, or is that not an option?
Yes, we do. Some jobs we don't allow subcontracting, so it should be the main contractor is the main contractor to do the job. If he is not fit and he's hiring subcontractor, then it's another issue.
Yeah.
When there should be a subcontractor for some big jobs, we deal with the contractor, the main contractor directly, and make sure that the plan and the scope of work is reaching to all subcontractors.
Mm.
Of course, the rules to be followed by main contractor, we make sure it's being followed by the subcontractor through the HSE team at site.
So it sounds like you're doing your part of the assurance to make sure it's done in a safe way.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to ask a last question, and that's what will you do when the scope changes? Or maybe why is it important to capture changes in scope during execution when the contractors perform their work? Anyone want to come off? Anyone else want to give it a go?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, basically, when we deal with the contractors, sometimes it happens that the scope of the job gets changed. Means there is some additional requirement which has to be done to complete the project. So such cases, what we do, so we first discuss with the contractor whether they are able to take up the job. So if that is feasible, we go back and review our risk assessment, because whatever the earlier risk assessment done is for the earlier scope. So we completely review it, and then once both the parties are agreed with that plan, it is safe to work and there are no more challenges or risks involved in the job. And if at all anything risks are involved, we will take precautions, whatever required to be taken, such that the crew is safely getting the job executed. So that's how we do whenever there is a change in the scope.
Thank you, Satesh. Just what I like to hear. You go back and you review the risk assessment to ensure that the contractor is capable to take on the additional scope. Yeah, great. Anyone else wants to, just in general, have anything to share? How you work with contractors in execution? Hello? Chucks, did you try to? I think there's a bad connection with your line. Sorry about that. Can hear a robotic voice. Anything else you want to add, Dave, before we move on to the last part? You're on mute.
Oh, Heidi, were you asking for me?
Yes, I was just wondering if you have anything to add before we move on.
Yeah, I thought you said anything else to add for today, so I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
My experience is that for the high risk jobs, we typically contract them out or subcontract them out. And oftentimes what we've learned, unfortunately, is we maybe don't follow those as closely as we should, because this is a specialty contractor. They're doing a high risk job. They have the knowledge and the experience, and we don't follow it as closely as we should. That's a lesson learned. My other comment before you move on is my experience is when scope changes, typically bad things happen on the job related to safety. Run and maintain, things generally go pretty well. Something changes, we don't manage to change well, and then my experience is something bad happens, and that's unfortunate. So those are my comments. Back to you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll move on to the key learnings, and pardon me, I will go back to the presentation. Dave, are you okay with seeing my screen?
I can.
Yeah. So let's reflect and see if we learned something today. And I think we'll just put the questions out there and allow for people to come off mute again and give some feedback on how they how the session went and if you learned anything.
Heidi, one way I like to frame this up for folks as they're thinking about their responses is, imagine at the end of the day today, someone who cares about you, family member, colleague, they say to you, hey, I heard you were in this Only Together session with these two people from Shell. What was that all about? What did you get out of it? And so our question is, what did you get out of today's session? What did you learn? What are you thinking about? Just kind of a debrief. How would you respond to that question? Roger, if we were to start with you and then ask others to come off mute, what would you say in terms of your learnings and reflections on the session today?
Well, thank you. I think it was very interesting discussion. As I say, I've come from an area where we limited to contractors and we didn't go down as far as subcontractors. So it's a recognition that, you know, there are people that who are using subcontractors for some of these high risk activities these days, and you know, it's even more important to get the message down the line and bring larger groups of people together to be able to understand and manage the hazards and risks of these activities. So I think that was my key takeaway from today. And the only other comment I'd make, and it was mentioned, I think, in passing, was, you know, the ability of anyone on site to stop the work if they don't like what they're seeing. And you know, I always say to people, ask the stupid questions. You know, try and have a culture and environment where you feel quite happy to ask a stupid question. I always think they're the best ones. That's my thoughts.
And thanks for that, Roger. I ask a similar, or say something similar. I remind people there's no such thing as a stupid question, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, well done, thank you.
From my side, if I can say something, that the outcome from this workshop is the same as what we have as a logo for working at site. It's safer together. Yeah. So when we work together, we will work safer. Of course, I mean, the bridges between client and contractor should be very short. There should be no long bridges so that difficult to reach to the contractor or client reaching to the, or contractor reaching to the client. Being together at site, talking, listening, and improving, reviewing day by day, hour by hour, will make everyone safe.
Heidi, I love that that safer together motto or logo, if you will.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, we posted as a safety slug on at site. Plus, we use it in our presentations, documents between our company and the contractors.
Yeah. And Hussein, one more thing quickly. In Shell and some of the work that I do, the term we use is Shell and our contractor partners. I really don't like it when we say contractors. I really try to emphasize it's our contractor partners, to emphasize this togetherness. We're in this together. We're a team. We're going to do it together.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, it's one team. They are we and them are employees. I mean, we're in the same ship.
Yeah. Anyone else that wants to share what they got out of this session today?
It was a nice session. I like the idea of the session, that a video and reflection on the videos. I don't, it may be the first time to go over this experience. So I enjoyed it. thank you all for that effort for planning this. One of the things that I learned today that it's if you have a change or if you have multiple layers, it might be difficult to track and to enforce quality. This something I agree. I think this I agree. But if you only have one contractor, it might be easy or easier if you have two or more layers. Also, if you have a change, but change might happen because of external factor, not only because of a requirement. This is also one thing that can be beyond the capacity of both parties. Before the session, actually, I was reading about agile project management, and one of the 4 values of agile is that customer collaboration is preferred over contract negotiation. This is one that has 4 principles, and one of them is that a new way is that it's not about contract negotiation and the contract and meeting the contract, but it's we are together.
Yeah.
So this is the third principle of the agile project management. It just matches what I have in this nice session, that we are together, although they call it customer collaboration. So even if your contract can be changed in a way that's not the best for you, but look at for a long term and look that for the other partner as one team, as one ship, as Mr. Hussein said. So it's a very nice session that helps me to reflect on this principle, a real example from the field. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think Dave will move on to the last part, and I think what was just said was a nice segue into the supporting material that is available from the IOGP 423. It's exactly what you said. It's collaboration between all the contracting phases. So working together with the contractor, not a one-way street. There are available guidance on the IOGP website. There are a link to the website itself, and you can find the report itself and also available tip sheet to help the industry implement the guidance itself. And we also have tools and templates available to download and make use of. So that's what I wanted to share. And then over to you, Dave.
All right, Heidi. Firstly, thanks to you for working together, and really it's been my pleasure to be part of this team. Secondly, really thanks to the folks on the call. Really some good conversation along the way, so I appreciate that, and I learned some things as well. So really good use of time. And then lastly, this little picture here. I picked basketball. You could take football. You could take cricket. Pick your sport. There's some people that sit on the bench and they want it to happen. There's some folks that sit on the bench, they got the ball in their hand and they're wishing it could happen. And then there's others like us that just make it happen. And so what I would say in closing is only together, collaborating together, working together, we will make it happen. Let's be the ones that make it happen. Heidi, over to you to wrap us up.
Okay. Then, with that, I have nothing more to share. I would like to say thank you all for joining the session. I really enjoyed it, and we might meet again. So take care. Bye.